Sorry. Tonight at Teams Alpha. Have you been on the edge of my seat the entire time? Oh, cool. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. Indeed. Ah, we totally forgot about him. I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor's business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he? You remember your friend? Yeah, this guy's the guy that murdered the brother of your friend. Yeah. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stayed with me. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies. Okay, it turns out. Lord Van Zisk is being more intimately tied to this case than any of us realize, isn't he? I think he's aware of some things that he doesn't want to tell us. Yes, how true. He's very friendly for university in the dock. And now a waxworth of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life make an appearance too. Imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee a kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, dear fellow. With all that in front of the man, you make it sound deliberate. You meant to do that. The minute can help feeling. You really need to, resuscitate past memory, tragic memory. But this professor case is really very puzzling. Yes, in what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Draper, Mr. Dr. Society, and Lord Van Zisk. Seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes. In fact, I alone, I am not a member of the seat. So that leaves me an empty set all alone with no intersection to any other. Excuse me. Dr. Sater! Sater, I don't know. Dr. Courtney Sater, the niece Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested a 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me. You think it's been 10 years? 10 years in the laboratory will be less common. Smell of nothing but clothes and disinfectant. Policemen on the jury had a lot to say about you, as it happened to society. I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I hope that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. What do you mean? Lord Van Zisk won't be summoning me as a witness. No Strongheart has forbidden it. No Strongheart, huh? The Pandora box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get the information about it out of me. But not to hide the truth. That's cowardice. I've always fought crime the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. So she just come in and come out as she come in. She mentioned it too, this Pandora box. Whatever does it all mean? There's really no cause of concern, I'm assure you, when the trial resumes. The meaning will become all too apparent, whether you like it or not. I guess we're not gonna like it. Now that I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery, at the edge of my seats awaits. And maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. Be bitter and you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. Alright, I understand, thank you. Good. Shall we make my salts cars then? Purchase a bar of caramel earlier so I shall be gnawing on that or you know where to eat the truth. Sholmes caramels. Full of sugars and diabetes. What do a warning from you, Mr. Joe, really mean, I wonder? Especially that bit about whatever it may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter then. Determined to find the truth, no matter what. I think, nah. Could be? Nah. Still there, interesting. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, hereby recommit the proceeding of this court. Counsel for the defense, prosecution, are you ready to able to continue? The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready. As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at a great exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation. It seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord. So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense assertion that waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Love insists, my lord. Are we still waiting the arrival of Madame Tussauds? Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned. Now let's talk to her. Very well, bring in the witness. At once, my lord. Bailiff, sure, Madame Tussauds, out of hand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Draper is responsible, I'm sure he is. I mean, he must have an accomplice in the society. What connects the pair of them? Yes, the mother of the professor. As the key of the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present is all we have to go on. It's making shows. State your name and occupation for the call, please. My name is Madame Esmeralda Tussauds, and my waxwork artisan, and the proprietress of the Madame Tussauds Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. A new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are two of them in the world. Oh my, what expression she carved onto that face. What expressions? A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this? Oui, that's true. At first we believed he had been kidnapped. Kidnapped? A waxwork model kidnapped? Yes, my lord, there was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim. At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, it is Mr. Odi Asman. Well, of course I know him well, he's part of my odious personage exhibit. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all. Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we should see now the masked visage of the professor? She has the key? I have here the key, but it's strictly forbidden to open the lock. It's absurd. Pardon? I don't know what face you carve on your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly it won't be that of the actual killer. Indeed, the man's identity was never made public after all. The trial took place in closed court, the proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was... whatever. The condemned was summarily executed. His identity remains closely guarded and national secret. There is no possible way that our repository of the Audrey exhibit could get his hand on that information. She did got that information, and it appears. Quel dommage. It will seem you are unaware of the two-spell principles. What principles? The family Tussauds has always prided itself on sculpting its modules à la perfection, as they say. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with completely fidelity as well our principles. There's a well-known legend about the Tussauds waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tussauds family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. That is true, it was centuries ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually, at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. The Tussauds will stop and nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects. Dear me, don't disturb the tenacity of purpose. It's the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. So she's the one of the few people in the world that knows the face of the professor. It has been my family secret for generations. Do you mean that beneath that mask? Oui, the true visage of the killer is there. This is ludicrous. It's out of the question. Yeah, it's actually quite weird. Perhaps to spread terror through the Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tesbau's special experiment remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave, sight to behold, should come. But why cover his face? I think, Madame, it will be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in this creation. In its creation. With pleasure. Why cover it then? No, wait. The special exhibit in the House of Art is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. The impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with the two-spell family principles, and enlisted the aid of the gravedigger, who created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. Oh, they will do. So wait, you hired gravediggers? I hired myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. And dawn approached and I was very worried that I could be discovered. So she grave digged the fucking thing then. A grave digger, the man sanctioned this? Oh oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the grave digger. What harm did it do, huh? To truly see it, the face of the monster. Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But our spells will not be task spells if we did not insist on absolutely fealty to our sculptures. I don't believe this. I myself have seen the special exhibit of your museum, madame. A truly bloody curtain scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave. The scene it depicts what the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here the newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture of this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened as reported by the eyewitness who saw it. Man rises from grave is too absurd for words. The public eye enjoy absurdity in the museum. It's why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And the works were for the exhibit that was stolen from days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? That is correct. The professor you see before you are here. Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense. Proceed with the cross-examination. The works or links appear to the adult society. There has been some reason for that which it hasn't yet come to light. I'll find it. Get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that total society and the Rebbe were in on these crimes together. That is worrisome. Hold it! Surely that is illegal, isn't it? Yes, it is. It would seem the proprietors of this repository of novelties was buying them by monetary greed. Had nothing to do with money. The man is part of a London criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him to record this history. It is a raison d'etre of the Tusbel Museum. But if the man was convicted in a close court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the member of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity. I'll show you behind that mask you see the true face of the professor. You realize what you are saying. The professor's identity is a national secret. I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close. Of course it will. It will your entire museum if you don't tread very carefully, madame. That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you? So then years ago, the night of the professor's execution, you looked at a wax impression of his face from the corpse. Oh oui, exactement. Hold it! You were there longer than you expected to be. I had some difficulties in capturing the subject form correctly. To remove the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin. With the chin? Dare I ask? The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing, consequently, his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible go. Not. Under normal circumstances, I will have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence I missed my preferred window of time. What do you mean? When I take impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after that. Why 3 hours? Is the amount of time saved? It's because rigor mortis. Wriggling mortis? Yeah, wriggling. It's the name given a phenomenon that occurs recently in deceased bodies. After all 3 hours post-death, the muscle in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. Then, from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to a relaxed state. The fact is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. Well, that was an educational, it was a slightly scary one. As the mademoiselle say, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death and it starts in the jaw. I see. So that's why you wait. Before the time, the mouth falls open and it's very difficult to do my work. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk about corpuses. And wonder about information a coach just heard Madame Taspels. Significant? The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us. Do you mind including in your former testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see. Of course, if you don't mind, I do. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave. Only because it's you, Susato. Only because it's you. This is not time for jokes, Mr. Sato! Oh, damn it! But I kindly amend your testimony, as discussed. Bien sûr. Bien sûr. Why there is the sign of husband here? Husband. That's worrisome. Did he draw it? Anyway,
Objection!
Madame Taspels. I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of Professor following his execution at the gallows. And, is that a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and particularly detail in the report completely contradict one another. Quoi? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to your testimony, Madame Taspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn. At the time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, Madame? Madame? You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis 2 or 3 hours after death. But the main big chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time. On the other hand, if you look at the side of the report, it's quite clearly state the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June. No. If the professor indeed died at midnight that night, by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would already have set in. Oui, yes, you're right. The chin will have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
Not only makes mistake when recording the time of death, the very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion: the execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. Impossible! Ore. Counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the out of the report of the site, but you also implicate a member of the staff at Barclay Prison, where the execution took place. Heck, extraordinary, man. Not in my day.
Objection!
My learned friends appear to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? The professor died that night. Without question. He did, of course he did. I moved the man's slim jaw with my own hands.
Objection!
Yes, the professor died at night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die after... Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting that happened in that case? It's always possible to believe, but it will explain the link between the society and the professor and the other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night. Council present evidence at once. Evidence that allegedly explain what really happened the night of the professor execution.
Take that!
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns to death in a local cemetery. Suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead. Well, if this article is to believe it, yes. The professor assumed that following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed.
Objection!
Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of it? Are you serious? The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened. My word, yes indeed. My mémoire, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance.
Objection!
Of course there was a witness, the story didn't write itself, but obviously, the man made it all up. And in that case, it was 10 years ago now. There will surely be no hope of finding him.
Objection!
He's in the courtroom right now. On the contrary, my lord, you'll know this witness well. Nandate. What are you suggesting, Counsel? That you identify the person in question? That you know claims to have seen the other incredible events take place? Yes, my lord, in fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes. You will substantiate the latest claim now then, Counsel. Who is this alleged witness?
Take that!
The man in question was Mr. whatever, Draper? The bravest witness? The special exhibit in the House of Horrors, Madame Taspal, Madame of Waxwork, recreates a decade-old scene in great detail. A condemned criminal emerging from the grave and beside the tomb. A young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And a young man. 10-year-old younger Mr. Enoch Draper. Ora, ore, yada. Surely not, Counsel. Draper was there, along Gate Cemetery. What is all this talk about, Mr. Draper? Is that the name significant? Of course, Madame Taspal doesn't know, does she? Yes, it is extremely significant, Madame, to your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the prosecutor waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No, but I will mean... Madame Taspals, it will appear that you know the name Enoch Draper. Oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago, in the past. What? Oh my, good gracious. Wait, what? Why are you so... Explain yourself, tell us everything you know. Yes, of course. Wait, cross-examine this? Okay, there we go. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity, his name was never revealed. How you managed to find it? There is apart from one newspaper. The Daily Sickers is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown to court. You're saying that his full name was only published in that article? Yes, man. Goodness me, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Draper, a disciple at science of the University of London and a resident of its student dorms. Unbelievable. I read the article I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night will make a perfect exhibit in my House of Horror, whether it was the truth or not. I see. So you went to meet Mr. Draper in order to scout the waxwork of the man, did you? Exactamente. He was studying science at the University of London those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, I was being in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery. Wait, what? With his long ass pose. So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about extraordinary events he witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated him as a claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote, and it was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man, still a waxwork model of the executed criminal, was ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork built a poor match for the victim, his face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the crystal tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Osmond, but the same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated Total Society would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted his autopsy report for the victim, which the court had seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor, is that what you're saying? The society put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Draper. But the misconduct was deadly secret the coroner will do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Draper used that particular waxwork as a body double. Ah, that's interesting. A very interesting theory. My lord, this court must summon the society to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Draper are. But according to the missive received this morning from the prosecutor's office, the society is unable to participate in the proceeding. Is that not the case? She told us so herself, didn't she? Well, Van Zesk won't be summoning me as a witness. Ostraga has forbidden it. How strong, huh? The Pandora box you are warned about is the professor's case. Oh, please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Something happened on the night of that killer execution 10 years ago. Surely nobody will want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zesk. The prosecution calls for the extraction in that missive to be scrapped. Oh, I see. But Lord Van Zesk, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on the policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Yes. Let Enoch Draper and Dr. Society both take the stand together. All the lies are gonna be exposed. Order, very well, I will uphold your request. Relief, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Society of Arrest Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty orders. Alright then, Enoch Draper and Dr. Society. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just stone thrown away, I can feel it. The truth behind all this is about to come out. Thank you for your tendency, I shall notice, Dr. Society. I'm disappointing you, Lord Van Zesk. You completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor office. Betrayal is not even an issue as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there is even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter who I would concern or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as will any prosecutor worth his salt. Otto Draper, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Otto Society, the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where your evidence? I feel like there like complacent, but they don't know they were complacent. I don't know if it makes sense. At present, we have no definite evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the Waxwork. His mother of the killer known as the professor who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes and officially pronounced him dead. It remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time of on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. I was all witness to that mysterious event. It was you, Dr. Draper? Mr. Draper. I don't know why I call it Doctor. Is what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction but reality. It will make you privy to very great secrets of that society. Secrets so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Draper, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Longgate Cemetery. Oh, wow. Comments. So many more comments. I'm gonna get a sequel to enjoy the reading. What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person will take me seriously. Yeah, now here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a courtload too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank, I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what is worth. She seemed very annoyed by that. So, Mr. Draper, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Longgate Cemetery. Yes, of course, as you wish. The reason I was in Longgate Cemetery in all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But think back now, I realize that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist. It was all because of that newspaper article. Wait, what? Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course, you don't have to screw loose if you believe a corpse could come back from the dead. But so you're saying this article is not worth the paper. It's printed up. I think I will describe it perfectly, yes. If the details of the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Draper and Dr. Society will have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument. Tell me, witness, you claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate? That's right, grave robbing, to be precise. Oh, I'm sorry. I was like, doesn't make it better, but okay. As you know, Longgate Cemetery is the rear of Barclay Prison, so among students at the university I had a reputation of being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. Grave robbing, you say? That's interesting. Yes, exhuming fresh corpus to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead. So you were one of those called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society. Actually, my fellows, I went by another name. The reproposers? It is quite beyond peril. Who invite divine reproductions, huh? Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution now. The Daily Sickness eventually unearthed my name and put it in a print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with a bad grain. grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. I see. Out of interest, what drew the illustration for this article? Yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. Sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Mr. Osmond. Obviously, at the time, ticked on I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish. Very foolish. Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now. Well, my lord.
Objection!
Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago. My words against you. Oh dear, we seem to be at odds, but I was there and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago. It was decided in the closed court ruling that the man will wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution, a subsequent burial. Even the priest wasn't went to see the man's face. Obviously, the provision of his mask was not public knowledge. So, Mr. Drebber, as you have just heard. A lowly student at the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man mask. So unless you actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist will have included the mask in that illustration. Well, Mr. Drebber? It's a wise sin, isn't it, if you look closely? Now, I've already been at pains to point out I was utterly petrified, which is why I had in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards I came to my sense and realized that I'd been mistaken. You're still saying you didn't see it? You're so stubbornly sticking to that story, witness. Then I amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course, I'm only too happy to oblige. I can't believe it, he's still not going to concede that point. Really? A fellow grave robber? Oh god.
Hold it!
A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one visiting the cemetery that night, you know. Other bodies snatched were at work. Other? Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole, he dug my heart nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying side I actually saw, you see. Claiming it was just another student on equally is a insalubrious business as yourself. Many of the medical students will wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissection. Clearly the fellow was using such masks to protect his anonymity. Anonymity? What do you say?
Objection!
That's interesting theory. There's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, the next second, gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath distilled once more. Might assume the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps fell upon one of them. A grave digger has shot some in the cemetery. I think it might have been rather big news, miss. My lord. Oh yes, well. I'll assume it was
Strange.
It was an embellishment bolted on the letter.
Excuse me!
Excuse me, madame, as well? Down to spells. Take it out on Mr. Sholmes. Oh la la. Pardon. It was lost in my thoughts. Sure, would it be fair to say that Mr. Draper's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Draper could claim this now. But don't mind me saying, madame, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventure into the cemetery, including the gunshot. Stop. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have your cat drop it as no way to speak to a lady. Please, Madame Taspels, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Draper told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him and the bullet hit the condemned. I said nothing of the sort. No, you were very explicit about the details, about the mask that the figure was wearing, and the blood that splattered over you when he was shot. Enough! Shut up, woman! You're making all this up. That will do. It was a zombie scene, Mr. Draper? Huh? Yes? You're refutable to account just given by Madame Taspels. I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on, do you really expect us to believe you? Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusation in my courtroom. Right, right. Under the circumstances, I think it's best way to supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness. Very well.
Hold it!
That young woman being Madame Taspels, of course. Besides, I must say I didn't expect to run into her again, like this 10 years later. As I've explained, I went by the name published in the article, and I found the man. Ah, yes, the article in the Daily Secret Society, you said. I was a poor student with barely a penny of my name at the time, so... money. The young lady put £5 in front of me. So you really consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display. I did, I should sell what little I had to sell that day. Ah, wait, I remember. I purchased something else from you that day. They said, huh? Did you? I can't say I remember. What was it, madam? His camera. Oh yes, I made the point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion to any cemetery. Took a camera with you, sir? To what end? To record details of the bodies I disentered. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it. But I still have it, monsieur. It's part of the special exhibit in your House of Horrors. Very meticulous about such details in the Taspels. I will see them. It is the very camera Mr. Draper took with him along the cemetery the night in question. Yes, interesting. The deal will help me adjourn. So guys, if you remember when we visited the museum, we opened this.
Objection!
And there was blood in it. So the Draper, do you remember this camera? But that is the camera from the fateful night. Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you in the cemetery that night, Mr. Draper. And it's supposed to be significant. This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. Notice the lens extended forwards at the end of some bellows.
Hold it!
What's that? There's dust on the bellows. Looks like a dark stain. Ah. That's right, it's Radical Speaker's mark here on the bellows, in fact. Good lord, are you suggesting... Yes, I am. Yes, I am. You appear to be a spat of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test, isn't that right, Dr. Society? It'll be difficult to determine if it was a human blood or not, the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough. I propose the Madame Taspel testimony was correct. And out of the night in question 10 years ago you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound. Well, And furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
Objection!
But why? Why would you want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. For wisdom. Who could have benefit? Mr. Draper is obviously lying in order to protect somebody. My goodness. He's shielding someone? Yes, my lord. And clearly. It's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed. Well, counsel, who is it then? Who is this wizard trying to protect? I guess it's Sheila?
Take
Could be
that!
wrong. The obvious answer is Dr. Saiti. Saiti? What? Whatever do you mean? Imagine if the convict who had been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If he was the professor, that would be an unprecedented scandal.
Objection!
This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you're suggesting will mean that the execution never actually happened? Yes, that's actually what I will mean.
Objection!
Okay, once a man is sentenced to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape, not in good
Objection!
faith. But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging. If it was really true, counsel, the implication of the misconduct will not stop the supervising coroner. It will take the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up. How? How do you escape being hanged? Exactly because of those monumental repercussions, the Dr. Sire will consent to hang the man made of hair by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that man being complicit in the crime. You mean... I mean, the Dr. Society wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drapery's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaboration in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Osmond with a waxwork model and fabricated autopsy report. Something else, okay. Oh, he's on. I was hoping the assistant, the apprentice, help aid him to just smash his leg onto the table. Oh, Francisks. Pray forgive my freshly filled hollow chance. The whole raffle utter discourtesy now. Oh, that's me. Just as a sort of tall tales London is will enjoy grandeur. Next to execute the killer, as if at the dam, just control on your cover up. A conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing. What's that? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger? And dispose of him forever. Who pulled the trigger? No idea at the moment, yeah, that's the point. He must have witnessed it. I have told little information to work that out at the present, I think. I could agree more. And have you considered this, my learned Nepalese friend? Consider what? You realize just what dangerous endeavor will be to coerce these women in such criminal activity? No? Is a tantamount to declaring war to the entire British police force and judiciary. Quite hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it. To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake will be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was not petty crime either. Victim was murdered. A man who already invested money in the venture and will be instrumental in future profits too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Osmond at all. Or you forgetting that his death resulted in me receiving not a single penny. The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim, no? There is a contract. Very true. The motive of this case runs deep, though. I can feel it. Using 3 threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme, especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Osmond alive would have made no sense anyway, which means Dr. Draper's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Husband. But why? What was his motive then? Your time is up, my learned friend. I say you have one last chance before jury lose their patience with his charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? I love how it just voided the thingy. How do you explain why this engineer would throw a college into the window and try to his own country? Like, what? Jesus. At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence. Alright, what exactly was Mr. Husband's rapper? This commercial once seen. I'm going to have to present a piece of evidence to show what it is. So it's definitely the journal. There's a high chance that Husband was a reporter that ruined the life of our fellow our fellow engineer here. So there's definitely the 10-year-old journal.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, Miss My Lord. What was written 10 years ago? Every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? The article should never have been written. This article cut press nonsense that means nothing. Yes, on its own, it's not particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Husband dead. What other evidence? I'm assume we'll present your evidence without delay. I assume it's the contract. I did.
Take that!
It is contract, my lord. Mr. Draper, there is a contract you signed with Mr. Husband. Yes, that's right. The very document. That proves that I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. I think he realized that. He was working for him, then he realized who he was. There's something very significant that his newspaper article and the contract have in common. Really? What is it? It's the common link. That shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. O.D. Husband. It seems that the fans has uncovered something the rest of us has missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common.
Take that!
What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature. A signature? The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person. What? He realized it. Too late. As the god has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by a newspaper reporter who found Mr. Draper and interviewed him on his ordeal. So he yeeted his anonymity, so he had a reason to kill him. If you look closely, the reported signature can be seen at the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Husband's signature at the bottom. Let me see now. Oh lord, yes, they're identical. In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Draper 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. O.D. Husband.
Objection!
But explain to the court why. Why will that constitute a motive for the witness to murder the husband? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Draper talked about the article in his testimony. Hey, Bobby, you say? Yes, extremely fashion artist. I really might look at it. Ah, whatever. Quite beyond the bell, you invited the minor revolution, sir? Yes, well, I think I suffered a revolution now. The deadly sickness eventually unearthed my name, put it in that prayers. Caused me a great many headaches, and then I had to leave the university. I was the only paper with the bad grades to identify me unambiguously. Then I gave up my dream because of that newspaper. Yeah, we all got it. He definitely has motive. The time you were a student of the University of London, we dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life. So Mr. Husband used to be a newspaper journalist, did he? He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Husband managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a newspaper, as a reporter, as a newspaper. Okay, sure. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university and lost everything. Eventually you found yourself working in the field of science only in the shadows, all because of that article written by Mr. Osmond. Enough! Stop this endless drivel about my life. What? Explain yourself, Mr. Dripper. Yes, it's true I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. They struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew, your ideas will be stolen and patented by some wretched or other after all. Good gracious. Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, while I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a bunch. Being forced out of university because of low gate was the best thing that could have happened.
Objection!
Mr. Draper, you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who better place to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? But I have evidence to prove it. Yeah, I have evidence, true. How are you in position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead, show it. What could possibly have to prove the idea that I was happy to leave? The trophy, right?
Take that!
So you remember these, Dr. Draper? We found it in your workshop. Is that the Royal Society Trophy for Excellence in Science? Or also, aka, no, the massage, the massager, the massager? What exactly is this trophy, Counsel? It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord. There is no higher accolade. Recognize emerging talent and promising bright future. Good gracious. Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't there, Mr. Draper? Because even then, you were genius in your field. When you lost everything, you had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Osmond was, but when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life. It's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. The truth is... Finally, he's going to fold? I don't think he's going to. No, he's not.